Be sure to subscribe and click on the bell for notifications on future uploads. Hello, someone right here, or you can call me Sulli, and welcome to some more of Sulli-Ween. Two years ago for Sulli-Ween, I did a top 10 list of my top 10 scariest movie moments as a kid, and I mentioned that Disney has a share of scary moments and I will take another list to cover them. Well, I think it's time to bring that list up, as Disney themselves have plenty of scary moments in their movies. But I'm going over the ones that affected me, and no surprise, were more scary to me as a kid than as an adult. Now there are going to be repeats from my scariest movie moments list, along with some new additions, and I'll try to bring up something different to say to them to avoid repetition. And they all won't be from their animated films, as their live action films also have scary moments too, and they're getting some recognition here. So, in concluding this month of Sulli-Ween, I'm going to go over my top 10 list of my top 10 scariest Disney moments. Number 10. The moments from The Little Mermaid. One of Disney's biggest films and starting point for the Renaissance era, The Little Mermaid is no stranger to presenting scares. Yet while I did find these moments scary as a kid, I soon found them to be interesting as I grew up. But they sure did leave an impact on me. And the moments I found to be scary are when King Triton gets angry, and that includes him destroying Ariel's stuff in her grotto, some shots of Ursula, whether it's a close-up of her lips or a sudden appearance, the shark attack with Ariel and Flounder, and Ariel turning into a human and almost drowning. Of course these moments are quite tame and I got used to them, but back then I felt scared seeing animated characters have these experiences. And as a kid, I felt unnerved by these moments so much that I didn't see the film too much and only watched it a few times because no matter how brief or how long these bits go, I always followed the scares in this film over all the good and nice scenes. Yet while I don't mind the scares nowadays and enjoy the good stuff more, I'll always remember the scary stuff and how they affected me. Number 9. The moments from Aladdin. Much like The Little Mermaid, Aladdin has its share of scary moments as well, with about the same number of them and being directed by the same two directors, John Musker and Ron Clements. But where both films have interesting scares that I grew to enjoy, this one's scary moments are a little more intense than the last one. There's the thief getting eaten by the Cave of Wonders in the beginning, Jafar's disguised as an old man, even when he smiles, Jafar turning into a giant cobra in the climax, and of course Aladdin, as Prince Ali, drowning when being gagged and cuffed to a ball and chain. Again, I have the same feeling for these moments as the ones in The Little Mermaid, where I remember the scary moments over the rest as a kid, and then vice versa as an adult, but gotten used to the terrors. But once in a while, these scares are simply more effective than the other film for how they're presented. The thief screaming before his death, the look of Jafar in any way possible, and Aladdin's watery peril being more longer and intense than Ariel's. The movie is more enjoyable than The Little Mermaid, but the scary moments are more amped up than before, and to me, as a kid, it was just frightful enough. Number 8. Jack's scare face from The Nightmare Before Christmas. This movie is still great to watch every holiday season, yet everyone prefers to view it on Halloween, which I totally understand nowadays than in the past. But still, no matter how much I love this movie, the scare factor with it is still present, and to where I've grown to appreciate them, there's still that tiny bit that feels unnerving. Case in point, Jack Skellington's scare face. Sure, on occasion he makes a scary face and the toys he leaves on Christmas Eve add some creepiness, but this one face he makes towards the end of the town meeting song is rather unsettling. Yet I felt terrified by him as a kid because of this, and had to cover my eyes whenever it happened. But, like I said, I've grown to appreciate it more, and found myself loving the character of Jack Skellington over the years. Though this brief moment still gets me and is a little bit spooky to see on its own. And every time I watch this movie, I can never forget my first exposure to Jack, and how scary he was back then for me. Number 7. The Screaming Eye Alien from Flight of the Navigator. While I'm not into this movie as many people are, there's still some memorable bits from it. And one of them happens to scare me quite a bit that it came out of nowhere. It's where the boy, named David, looks through the spaceship to see all the alien creatures on board. A couple of them are cute and some are odd. Yet as David takes a good look at these aliens, he sees what seems to be a big brown ball turns out to be a giant eye that screams, catching David, as well as me, off guard. This is the only moment in the movie that gave me a good spook, but it was one that made me not want to watch this movie again for years. It's really one of the most tamest of scares, even for Disney, yet it wasn't a fun scare when I was very young seeing it for the first time. It's almost like a jump scare. Sure, the rest of the film is more likely a sci-fi fantasy adventure, and to me, it's kind of a forgettable and dull film, but this moment with the Screaming Eye Alien is something that I'll never forget. That, and a few other quirks like Paul Reubens, aka Pee Wee Herman, as the voice of Max the computer. Number 6. The Moments of Homeward Bound, The Incredible Journey. Now, how is a film about two dogs and a cat traveling the wilderness trying to reach their owners that have left them behind going to offer anything scary? Well, plenty. And these moments from this 1993 remake of the 1963 original that's based off a book are enough to get me spooked, even for what's out in the wild and with these three harmless pets. There's Sally getting caught in the rapids and going downstream, all the sounds getting louder at night while the pets try to sleep, a porcupine pricking its quills in Chase's face, Shadow caught in a dish he can't get out of, the pets being taken to animal control and thinking terrible things will happen to them. It all feels horrible to witness. Even the animals of the wild suffer through it, like this mountain lion that falls down a cliff. Seeing real animals go through all this is much more frightening than animated ones, and it makes the movie a little more scarier because of the real animals being used and the voice acting feeling quite real. If people thought Milo and Otis got criticized for harming its animals, I don't know why they give this one a pass. For what I've seen, it's too shocking for any animal to endure all this just for one goal. Number 5. The Moments of Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I have mentioned this on my list of scary movie moments, but I'll try to say more than what I mentioned last time. Overall, this movie is fun and interesting given all the effects and comedy that went into it. But for being one of, if not, the first live-action Disney film I've seen, it does have plenty of scary moments, and they all begin once the Zelinsky and Thompson kids get shrunk by Wayne's invention. Being swept up by Wayne and thrown in the trash, Nick encountering a bee and he and Russell flying on it, facing a scorpion, avoiding a sprinkler, getting nearly cut by a lawnmower, and Nick almost getting eaten by his dad. All the horrors these kids go through are very intense, as the most normal and harmless of things become pretty dangerous and threatening when they're very small. Just the idea around these intense moments are enough to make me scared of seeing them. Being that small and have everyday stuff almost kill you is terrifying to think up, and this film delivers on that. And did I mention the screaming of the kids? Because that's also scary, most notably with Amy and Nick. I may have a fun time watching this movie whenever I could, but the scary moments that this movie offers are really a shocker. Number 4. Joanna's intro from The Rescuers Down Under. One of Disney's most underrated gems and one of their best from the Renaissance era is not without its scary moments, as this film does have them. Enter Joanna, Percival McLeach's pet lizard. Sure, she has her funny moments and I do enjoy them, but for why she's scary is for how quick and sudden she appears. And nowhere is she more scary in this film than in her introduction. It starts off with Cody trying to save a mouse being used as bait, but in saving it, Cody falls in the trap set up by McLeach. But once McLeach's truck arrives, Cody remains standing in the trap until, out of nowhere, Joanna quickly comes face to face with Cody, scaring him and even me. Just that one first appearance of her really got me then, and is one of, if not, my first exposure to a jump scare, and it's from a Disney film no less. Granted, I got used to it over the years, but whenever Joanna appeared, I covered my eyes as a kid, even when I know she's coming. Yet her intro in this movie is enough of a reason for me to feel frightened for how quick it is. Number 3. Judge Toon Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit. Yeah, I've gone on about this one other times before and even include him on my Scariest Movie Moments list, but he brings out a scary moment that was a lot to take in, and I'm never going to forget it. And despite how great of a character Judge Doom is and how fun it is to see Christopher Lloyd playing a villain, the movie's climax, where Eddie Valiant fights Doom, finishes off with what I call Toon Doom, and it's the most frightening part of the whole film. From his first look with those eyes to his screaming face, Toon was, and in some ways still is, a terrifying threat. Even though his Toon form is under human clothes and a rubber mask, it just makes his appearance seem more scary when you only see his eyes, because whatever he looked like without the clothes and mask is still a shocking mystery. His voice, his eyes, his death, everything around Toon is enough to make me scared of a villain, which I found to be rare. And though Eddie's description of him feels and sounds eerie, just seeing him almost in person was, and still is, too memorable and scary to even forget. Number 2. The Quicksand scene from Rudyard Kipling's The Jungle Book. I'll admit that Disney's first attempt at remaking their animated classic is not that good. But that doesn't stop this movie from having one of the most horrifying moments I've ever seen that I didn't go back to watching the film until years later. And it still remains as scary to me. It all happens when Mowgli, who was under the watch of Carrie Elways to find a temple full of treasure in the jungle, escapes from him and the group, causing them to split up and find Mowgli. Thus Mowgli leads each of the men one by one to their deaths in the jungle, and one of them ends up dying via quicksand. It was a slow sink at first, but quickly becomes intense the more this man screams to get out, and his companions fail to help him. But much like the screaming in the original King Kong, the screaming of this man sinking is the most horrifying, making me think quicksands are death traps underneath. Which they are, but how this one goes is just too much. Sure, there's a silly line that follows to lighten the mood, but this is one moment from a mediocre movie that I'll never forget, because even though he's a bad guy, his death in quicksand was, and still is, very terrifying. And my number 1 scariest Disney moment is the Coachman from Pinocchio. Yes, this is the only moment out of all the Disney films I've seen as the scariest to me. And again, I have already talked about this on my scariest movie moments list, so I'll just cut straight to the point. The reason I find the Coachman from Disney's Pinocchio isn't because of his threatening tone or really the idea of him being creepy. All of my fears around this character comes from one single image. This face. And for years after seeing it as a kid, I couldn't even look at it in another light. It was that terrifying. Before a film that has plenty of other scary moments, from Lampwick changing into a donkey to Monstro the Whale, all of which were pretty tame for me, this face from one of the film's villains was, and still is, the most frightening I have seen from Disney. It's one of those times where when I see it once, I could never see it again, and I always tend to look away when it pops up. And for coming from a story that has its own scary moments in it, that's saying a lot. And it's this face alone that makes it my number 1 scariest Disney moment. And that ends another Sulli-Ween. So thank you for joining me. Like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Facebook or Twitter, support me on Patreon, and until next time for a new video. And have a happy Halloween! Huh. This is the first time Mr. Nobody hasn't interrupted my Sulli-Ween. I wonder where he is. Oh.